Hi, and welcome to the session on collaborative efforts to scale up statewide pyramid model efforts. My name is Brittany Herrington, and I will be the presenter for this session. I'm going to first get started by sharing the disclaimer with you. And this disclaimer was developed by the 2022 OSEP Leadership and Project Directors Conference. So the disclaimer says that the contents of this presentation were developed by the presenters for the 2022 OSEP conference. However, these contents do not necessarily represent the policy of the Department of Education, and you should not assume endorsement by the federal government. All right. So like I said, my name is Brittany Herrington, and I work for Reach Mississippi. We are Mississippi's SPDIG, and we have been awarded, or Mississippi has been awarded the SPDIG since 2005 to the Department of Education, our DOE, and then Reach, who uses the SPDIG funds to operate, is operated out of the University of Southern Mississippi in our School of Education currently. At Reach, this round of funding, we have two areas of focus on both academic and behavioral supports. We use UDL for our academics, and we use PBIS and social emotional learning for our behavior supports. At Reach, we have two goals. Our first goal is with students, supporting students, and our second goal is supporting adults and staff who in turn teach and support these students. So what we want to see in the next 4 or so left years, 4 and a piece years, is that students, specifically those with disabilities, are increasing their growth on ELA or math state assessments. And then for our second goal, we have a professional growth system here in Mississippi that's newer, and we have teacher growth rubrics, administrator growth rubrics, counselor, librarian, speech path. We have all kind of growth rubrics. And our academic and behavioral supports that we provide at Reach Mississippi align to these rubrics. And so we want to provide training and coaching and other supports to teachers and other staff to help them grow individually as needed in this comprehensive professional growth system. So that is a little bit about Reach and what we do. So now I want to jump into the content with you guys. So this session is on collaboration. Specifically, I'm going to talk about the pyramid model because that's the journey that we've been on, or we've been on lots of journeys, but that's the journey that I've been on. But you can definitely use some of these practices for statewide implementation of other initiatives, specifically other initiatives that you're wanting to collaborate with other agencies and organizations on. And so this was about a 5-year journey, but I'll start in 2013, which, was almost 10 years ago, but that's an important piece of the pie. So in 2013, for the first time, Mississippi had state-funded pre-K, which was a big win for us. Before that, schools and districts were using some federal title dollars and other local funds to support pre-K if they had pre-K, and many schools and districts simply did not have pre-K because they did not have a way to fund it. And then in 2017 is when Mississippi began pyramid model implementation. And so first it began in state-funded pre-K, which are called our collaboratives, which include a school district and a Head Start at minimum, and can also include child care centers. And the pyramid model implementation was also for schools that were funding their pre-K by whatever means, even if it wasn't through the state-funded means. And so what's important to note that happened in those 4 years before pyramid model implementation began is because Mississippi had state-funded pre-K, there were legislation that came with that. There were new policies, new procedures, staff at our DOE that we didn't have before, processes, all these things that were able to be developed because we now have state-funded pre-K. And so through that, pyramid model just kind of sprang up as a way to help teachers with their behavior, with their high quality classrooms, and with their social emotional teaching. And so then 3 years later, we were able to expand our pyramid model implementation into the childcare arena, which was wonderful. And so it grew from just me in 2017, literally, and really half of me because I do other things on the grant that we have, just me in schools and state funded pre-K, to now we have these other folks, multiple other folks in childcare. And so that was great. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we were able to do that. And then just last year, we published our Mississippi K-12 social emotional learning standards. Now, we've had pre-K SEL standards for quite some time, over a decade, but this was our first chance to have K-12 SEL standards. So right now, social emotional learning is big for our state, and there's lots of movement in this area. So it's a perfect time for this collaboration and for Pyramid Model to keep expanding and to sustain. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our current funding sources. So of course we have the SPDIG, which funds me to provide training and support and coaching, and funds trainings regionally. And that's all we had before. And so in 2020, when we were able to add the childcare on, we did, get some more funding for that. So our Mississippi Department of Human Services funds Pyramid Model in a couple of ways. First, our Division of Child Care and Development uses their child care development funds to fund a center called the Mississippi Early Childhood Inclusion Center, or MECIC, and they devote some of their staff's time to Pyramid Model implementation, and they provide training and coaching for child care centers, just like I do for state funded and other funded school district pre-K. And so if you're interested in funding Pyramid Model and you're wondering where that money is going to come from, the CCDF funds, that's a great place to have some childcare implementation because of the way that the language is written there. There has to be some connection to behavior and also connection for children who are at risk or who have disabilities. And because Pyramid Model is founded on behavioral sort of practices, and because the main reason that it was developed was for children who are at risk or who had developmental delays, those funds definitely would align and be able to support. Now, I'm not saying it's the whole a big chunk of funds, it depends on your state, but definitely, that's one area to look into for funding. And then we also have, funded by our Department of Human Services, a resource and referral network. And MECIC has a resource and referral center. I know that lots of states have things like that. They call them different things, but regional centers, regional ways to provide childcare support, implementation training, so on and so forth. And so through the funding of those resource and referral network, more funds are being used in Pyramid Model implementation. Now funds are not just for pre-K, because in the beginning it was just for pre-K classrooms and childcare. Now our Department of Human Services Division of Child Care and Development is putting some funds to the infant and toddler classrooms for Pyramid Model as well. And so those are all direct funds. So they either fund items, they fund trainings, or they fund people who can coach and support. Indirectly, we receive some support from our Department of Ed pre-K coaches. So every single state-funded pre-K program across the state has access to a pre-K coach that comes in and coaches the program and in the classrooms. And we have a couple of them that I am working with, and we're coaching some programs together. So I'm doing sort of the Pyramid Model program coaching, and they're doing the Pyramid Model practitioner coaching in the classrooms. So we're able to collaborate. It's not any dollars that our SPDIG is getting. It's not necessarily any dollars that are being training, but it's the use of these coaches' time that we're able to use. So that's been super helpful for me to expand and grow what's happening in our state-funded pre-K and in our schools. And so what I would tell you is with any initiative that you're implementing across the state, a good team is probably the most important thing. You need some money, but you also need a great team. And so for Pyramid Model, that's the state leadership team. And so this team makes decisions about how statewide implementation will work, develops procedures, develops processes, develops documents, gets the word out there. They also, if we strategically invite people to the team, which we'll talk about in a little bit, you're able to have a wealth of knowledge that gives lots of great feedback and input and really thinks about pyramid model implementation on a holistic approach. And so the state leadership team is a great place to start. If you don't have one, start one. If you do have one, we'll talk a little bit about how you can make sure you sort of have the right players on your team and what your team is doing. As far as scaling up, so if you saw on our journey, we went from just me, half my time, to now we have childcare implementation, to now we have some Department of Ed coaches that are helping out. And so what I felt like when our scale up was happening was excitement, was yay, finally, big dreams can come true. But then I was also a tiny bit nervous about the quality of what was happening, because at that time it was just me and I was doing my thing, and there was not a lot of hands in the fire. There was not a lot of different agencies that we had to go through. Everybody got the same exact training. Everybody got different coaching for their needs, but they got coaching through the same type of evidence-based practices. But now that we're opening it up to these other entities and all these other folks, how do we make sure that our scale up is quality controlled? And so what we did was we looked at our training content, and really we sort of vet that now. So when childcare began training on Pyramid Model, I met with them, talked with them, shared my training content with them, looked over their training content, offered feedback and suggestions, so that we're all sort of in agreement on what's being put out there, whether it's a school district employee or a childcare employee that they're getting, or even a Head Start employee, that they're getting the same or very similar content. We're doing a lot of different things to train coaches. So simply just, having time when they have a question that you pick up the phone or you answer an email, so that all coaches sort of have an outlet if they have a question. We haven't done any formal training of coaches. However, we're thinking about taking the Pyramid Model Consortium's practice-based coaching course that they have, and me in the fall running a little cohort through it. So using some of our SPDIC funds to pay for the fee for every person to access this practice-based coaching course. And then me and whomever is going to jump on the bandwagon and do this course with us, meeting once a week or once every other week for a set number of times and talking about the content, discussing the content, and sort of making this a cohort of folks that move through this course together. And so that would just be training coaches, and not just training coaches, but having a collaboration. We do receive technical assistance from the National Center on Pyramid Model Innovations. And they're called NCPMI, if you're not aware. And they provide monthly coaching calls where they're supporting us right now and helping us talk through and get together. So all of our program coaches get together for an hour, all of our practitioner coaches get together for an hour, and we're able to get content from the TA, but also able to share and grow as a group. And so when the TA ends, which will be happening this year, that's definitely something that we want to keep up so all of our coaches can feel connected. We also have regular meetings with different folks just to push forward together. So I meet regularly with MECIC so that we can talk about different things that we might want to do, new things, how things are going, this for childcare, this for schools, whatever it might be. I also meet regularly with the Department of Ed, our DOE coaches, and we talk about those classrooms or those programs that we are coaching together and how we can help each other out, and we share information. And then I also, sit down for a few minutes with our early childhood director at the Department of Ed, just to sort of say, here's where we are, here's what I'm thinking, what are you also thinking? And so just being able to collaborate with multiple entities across the state, asking them for favors, for input, for suggestions, or just running things by them so that we're all on the same page and we all sort of know what's happening. So those are some things that we have done to scale up and even sustain and keep that quality of content while we're scaling up. Another big piece is data. What about data? And so I'm going to tell you just how some of the data pieces work and what we do to support data and the use of data and the collection of data, specifically with the pyramid model. So on our state leadership team, we have work groups, and every person that's on the team is in a work group. Our state leadership team meets as a group monthly. Meets as a group every other month. And then on the other month, each work group meets together and works on their items that they are trying to accomplish. And so we'll talk about those, how you get to those items in a second. But we have a work group that's just on data. We have other work groups on PD and on families and other things, but we have a work group that's solely dedicated to data. And so that's helpful when we're looking at things from that lens, that there's a group of folks that come together and that are working on items specifically related to data and the pyramid model, and it's at the state level. So that's a state level push. Our state leadership team, the driving force behind it is our early childhood statewide benchmark of quality, or BOQ. And so annually we complete that BOQ. And then we use the results from that BOQ to form an action plan. And each work group has its own items in the action plan, depending on what work group it is. And most of our action items are accomplished through work groups. So work groups work on them, and then they bring them before the larger SLT group. We vote on them, and now we have a new document. We have a new procedure. We have an adapted version of something I'll tell you about in a second. And so again, a state level approach to data. So really looking at statewide, how are we implementing the pyramid model across the board? Shifting to classrooms, we have a fidelity tool that we use to measure pyramid model implementation in the classroom, and that's called the Teaching Pyramid Observation Tool, or TPOT. And we have a central spreadsheet that we use. It's a resource from NCPMI where we enter each classroom's TPOT data, and then we're able to do lots of different analysis, charts and graphs, and sort of see how each classroom is doing. Also see how each program is doing. Also see how each type of program is doing, all the childcare centers, all school districts. We can really take that data and do lots of different things with it by using that spreadsheet. And so right now I'm sort of the owner of that spreadsheet. And so I send it to MECIC. They input their childcare TPOT data, and then they send it back to me. I input the school and the statewide pre-K data, and that's sort of how we keep it. So you might be thinking, well, if I have lots of organizations doing this, that might get tricky. There is some electronic availability for keeping up with that. It does come with a fee. If you're interested in that, I know very little about it because I was just introduced to it a couple months ago, but you can email me. I have my email on the last slide, and I'm happy to tell you about that. Right now, the spreadsheet is working for us, but it's not going to work for us forever, and we know that. You might have to get an MOU between or among your agencies in order for that to happen, and that's perfectly fine. Whatever works to kind of keep data in a central hub. If you want to work towards an annual report, which is something that we are doing, being able to have that data sort of at your fingertips in one spot and not going, oh, well, I know how many schools I'm supporting, but I have no idea what's happening in childcare. Or the same thing for childcare. Childcare might say, well, I can tell you about my teapot data, but I can't tell you about the schools. And so we want pyramid model to be seen as this one group. So pyramid model implementation is one thing that's happening. It's one initiative. And that anyone who is implementing pyramid model will know enough about pyramid model to share data and information and not only know the one thing they do. So that's another big plug for the reason that we have this collaboration and these collaborative efforts that we're moving towards. And then thinking about data from the child level. And so there's something that NCPMI has put out called the Behavior Incident Reporting System, or the BIRS, or the BIR, depending on how you want to say it. But basically, this captures each challenging behavior that a child might have. And so if you're in the school side and you're not familiar with that, if you think about office discipline referrals or write-ups, that would sort of be the equivalent on the early childhood side to that. But the BIR as is, the feedback we were getting from the child care centers was that it was cumbersome. We even got that from a couple of schools as well. And so we were thinking about what to do about that, because this was not necessarily something we had created. And it really came down to the fact that for childcare, we were going to continue to collect no data, or we could make some tweaks to the BIR form, and then we could collect some data. So our SLT data work group took the BIR and adapted it to make there be less choices to choose from and to revise some of the wording. And now it's about to be rolled out into child care centers. So just another idea of sort of how we collaborate together and get something going. So a few pointers before we end the session. I would say that relationships are super important. Relationships are how Mississippi has gotten pyramid model scaled up and is keeping it sustained thus far. And one of the big ways that we were able to do that was by strategically inviting people to be on that state leadership team. So 5 years ago, before we had a state leadership team, a lot of different early childhood folks in the state were on different early childhood teams for different things, and we would see some of the same people at different meetings. And so most early childhood people in the state that do statewide types of things know each other on some level. And so we thought about how we could strategically invite folks. So I serve as a co-coordinator for the SLT, as does the director of the Mississippi Early Childhood Inclusion Center. And so we have a child care voice and a state-funded pre-K and school voice that are co-coordinating. But we invited folks to the table who played ball well together. That was important. Not that we don't ever have to have a discussion. I remember when we were writing our mission and vision, we had lots of discussions over the wording, and we kind of tabled it. We thought about it. People disagreed. But at the end of the day, we work together. We compromise. We come up with plans. We value everyone's feedback. We invite people who wanted to participate so that we knew would participate in the meetings and who would come faithfully and not just once a year or just have their name as a member and not show up. We invited people who had knowledge on early childhood and were passionate about it. Same thing with either they were passionate about pyramid or they didn't know pyramid, but they're passionate about social emotional development. And so that's sort of what we wanted. We wanted people who could share their content and feedback and enthusiasm for both our littles and also for that social emotional and behavioral piece. We invited people who were heads of different agencies. I would say that if you know people who have the funds, invite those people. You want to invite people that can make decisions. So when I tell you about wanting something and asking for it, I wanted some help with the school coaching because I could not be in every classroom all the time. So how was I going to accomplish that? And the way that I did that was simply asking the early childhood DOE director, can I have some of your coaches? Can I take some of their time? Here's sort of my thoughts. What do you think? And she said, let me think about how to do this. And then she came back with a yes. And if I would have never asked her, then she might not have, or she definitely might, she would have never answered yes. She might have come up with it on her own, but she never would have answered. So my point there is you never know what someone's going to say until you ask for it. So ask, they might tell you, no, that's fine, move on, but definitely ask for it. Because of my passion, because of her work involved, because of our collaboration on other efforts, that is how MECIC began implementing pyramid model in childcare centers. So those relationships are super important. It's super important that you get people that come together, that want to be together, that want to work together, and that are trying to push forward. So relationships, huge. So what about funding? So if you can get line item funds anywhere, whether that's in your legislation, whether that's in a grant, whether that's in some kind of, whatever money you can get it in, if you can get a line item fund, that's great. If it says pyramid model, this amount of money, wonderful. We're not there yet. We don't have any money that says pyramid model here. We have money that we can link back to early childhood, or that we can link back to social emotional development, or we can talk about using the money and kind of mention pyramid, but we don't have just a line item fund anywhere. And so if you don't have one, it's okay. Just start small. Think about where you are, where your implementation is going, and what other initiatives are out there that would overlap. For instance, the CCDF funds. For instance, can I have things in direct? And for me, it was, hey, your coaches are going out into those early childhood classrooms. They're already teaching on the part of the pyramid about the high quality supportive classrooms. They're looking at center arrangement. They're looking at what happens in whole group and small group. They're looking at transitions. They're looking at classroom management, all of these pieces. So they're already out there really doing lots of pieces of pyramid. They're just not calling it that. So how can we work together and collaborate and make it a little bit more pointed that, okay, when I'm out here, I'm helping them with pyramid model implementation. And that's one of the goals that we're working on, and it's specifically aligned to pyramid model implementation. So definitely see where other state initiatives, other federal initiatives, anything that's happening in your state, where you can make alignments and start there. And you don't necessarily have to have extra money, but if you can just have extra hands and resources and people willing to work on publications or whatever it is you're trying to do. A few things that we have on the horizon. I already mentioned the annual report. Every year we're adding additional implementation sites. We're rolling some off, rolling some on. And our newest thing that we're going to be doing, which is another big plug for collaboration, is community-wide pyramid model implementation. We're going to be piloting this. So this, if you're not familiar with that, is just what it says. It's the whole community getting involved. So it's not just implementing at the program level, one school district, one child care center, one Head Start, one state funded pre-K collaborative. It's implementing it at the community level. So there's a community team, and it's this child care center represented. It's this Head Start. It's this school, it's whatever's out there, and helping those folks collaborate across the county across a city, across a school zone, whatever makes sense. But it's called community-wide implementation because whatever you deem to be a community is fine. And so we'll be doing that soon. So if you have questions on that or interested in that, we haven't started it yet, but we're happy to share our plans with you if you would like. And so I just want to end again with this disclaimer. The contents of this presentation were developed by the presenters for the 2022 OSEP conference. However, these contents do not necessarily represent the policy of the Department of Education, and you should not assume endorsement by the federal government. And so lastly, here is my contact information. My email address is the best way to get me. You're welcome to take a look on our website and view what we have to offer, especially what we have in our early childhood section. But we have been on this journey for 5 years. There are lots of other states who have been doing this for 15 plus years. And so if you've been doing this for longer and you're wanting to know, okay, here I am, I'm already where you are, Mississippi, I'm wanting to move further, you're welcome to reach out to me and I'll be happy to share some contact information with you for states who've been doing this for longer. But if you've just started, or even if you've been doing this for a while and you're trying to figure out how to make collaboration happen in your state, because this is really, it's about pyramid model implementation, but this session was really about how to use collaboration as the hub for pushing, scaling up and sustaining your pyramid model implementation statewide. But regardless, doesn't matter where you are. I always love to collaborate with other state leaders who are implementing pyramid model just to kind of share resources, successes, ideas, feedback. So you're happy to reach out to me by email, even by phone anytime. We can set up a call. We can just email, whatever. Just want you to know that we're here as a resource, but we're also here to kind of be a collaborative partner for you. So states can collaborate together to make the pyramid model nation sustain and scale up. There is a handout that goes with this session. And so the big points that I was hoping that you would take away from the session are included on that handout, as well as some resources that you could use to get started or to continue your implementation statewide. And so be sure to check that handout out. And if you can't find it, be sure to email me and I'll be happy to send it to you, as well as any of the resources I had listed. I hope you've been enjoying the conference and I hope you still enjoy it. And thanks so much for participating in this session.